Take a look at how Amal and George Clooney look at each other. This is too much for me. They came to the studio on a very important day for them. On the cover of a magazine, it says that Amal and I are trying to get a divorce. Oh, already? That's not good. I'm sorry, we did our best. People were shocked when George Clooney's marriage, which seemed to be going great, hit a terrible snag. It has always looked like George and Talia Balsam had everything they wanted. A life full of love, wealth, and happiness. Behind the scenes, though, things took a dramatic turn after something that is said to have made Talia decide to break up with him. Clooney was at the top of his career, but he was having a hard time balancing his personal life with the pressures of Hollywood. Balsam was said to be growing apart from her husband. Later, George himself said that he wasn't ready to get married, and this caused a big rift between the pair right away. Now that George is married to Amal Clooney for the second time, it looks like he changed his mind. Their love story is very different, and Clooney is now married, which is something he has never done before. This makes us wonder what went wrong with his first marriage. What changed your mind so that you could make such a big choice? Come with us as we try to figure out what happened with this sudden turn of events. George Clooney was born in a small Kentucky town in 1961. He had a lot of charm and power in his life from the start. Bruce, George's mother, was both a beauty queen and a city councilwoman. This shows that George came from a family that knew how to make a name for themselves. Nick Clooney, his father, was a recognized news anchor and TV host who was best known for his work on the AMC network. With his background, George was always going to be the center of attention. The different Irish, German, and English roots in Clooney's family tree give him a special charm that people all over the world can't get enough of. But George didn't become famous right away. He started out with small parts on TV and worked his way up until he got his big break. A lot of people knew his name over time, and Hollywood couldn't get enough of him. But he didn't just stand there for the camera. Clooney was good at more than just acting. He also became a well-known director. He has won 2 Academy Awards, a British Academy Film Award, and 4 Golden Globes for his work as a director and producer. Clooney is one of the most well-known people in Hollywood. Some of the most important awards in the business have been given to him over the course of his career, such as the Cecil B. DeMille Award and the Kennedy Center Honor. Some small TV parts in the late 1980s were George Clooney's first steps as an actor. These early years were just the start of a truly amazing career. But when Clooney got the part of Dr. Doug Ross in the medical show ER in 1994, everything changed for him. The show was a big hit, and Clooney got a lot of attention for playing the charming but complicated doctor. Because of this part, he was nominated for 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, confirming that he is a growing star. Clooney's TV success was just the beginning. Soon he moved onto the big screen, and From Dusk Till Dawn, an exciting mix of horror and action that came out in 1996, was his big break. He quickly rose to fame as a main man in Hollywood after that. His famous part as Batman in Batman and Robin came out in 1997, but the movie got mixed reviews. Clooney didn't let this slow him down. He was in the highly acclaimed war movie Three Kings 1999 and the movie Out of Sight 1998. These roles show how versatile he is as an actor. Things got even better in the early 2000s. Clooney's roles in The Perfect Storm and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, both released in 2000, showed that he could handle both big-budget action movies and odd movies with strong characters. But Ocean's 11 2001 made him a huge star, made by Steven Soderbergh. Clooney became famous all over the world for his part as Danny Ocean, the smooth-talking leader of a heist crew. The Ocean's movies, which ran from 2001 to 2007, are a big part of George Clooney's reputation. For his role in the political thriller Syriana, Clooney got his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in 2005. At this point in his career, things started to change. He started to play more serious, dramatic parts. He received more praise for his roles in Michael Clayton 2007, Up in the Air 2009, and The Descendants 2011. For each of these roles, he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor. Movies like Burn After Reading 2008 and The American 2010, which were both tense thrillers, showed how versatile Clooney was. He played the lead in Gravity in 2013. In a groundbreaking sci-fi movie that took viewers on an exciting trip through space. He also showed off his funny skills in Hail Caesar 2016. A strange comedy with a lot of big names about the golden age of Hollywood. After decades in the public eye, Clooney hasn't slowed down. He showed the world that his skill and charm will never go out of style in 2022's Ticket to Paradise. Clooney's work has been changing all the time. Grew from a young TV actor to one of the biggest and most famous stars in Hollywood. Famous jobs, praise from critics, and a legacy that keeps growing have all been a part of his life. They chose to get married and say their vows to each other under the bright lights and excitement. But the happiness of their wedding didn't last long. Things started to fall apart just 3 years later, in 1992. They had to make the hard choice to break up. In 1993, they got a divorce, which was the end of a life that had started out so brightly. Both of them were hurt by the breakup, and Clooney thought about it for years. He learned about love, heartache, and the difficulties of marriage through this bond. Clooney thought about that time a lot. He talked about how much he loved Balsam and the lessons he had learned from their marriage. Their journey together was full of love, laughter, and heartbreak in the end. It was a stark warning that relationships can be hard for anyone, even those who live in Hollywood. A lot of people want to know what went wrong with George Clooney and Talia Balsam's short-lived marriage. When they met, George was still trying to find his place in Hollywood. Before, he wasn't the big star we know him as now. Trying to make a name for himself, he worked hard and played many parts. Talia Balsam, on the other hand, came from a famous and well-connected family in Hollywood. Her mother was the well-known actress Joyce Van Patten, and her father was the known actor Martin Balsam. Talia grew up in the show business, which is full of glitz and glamour. Because her family was successful, she was used to the nice things that came with it. She also didn't have to fight her way into the spotlight like George did. She was already a part of it. Their connection was tense because of their different backgrounds. George, who came from a poor family, felt like the whole world was on his shoulders. He was still making a name for himself in a field that could be mean and harsh. Talia, on the other hand, was used to living in Hollywood where things moved quickly and connections were often more important than ability. As their friendship grew, these differences became clear. Talia, who was already famous, had a different view of life in Hollywood than George, who wanted to build his business and show what he could do. Their goals and dreams didn't always match up, which caused problems and confusion. It wasn't just their jobs that kept them apart. They also lived in different ways. George was stressed out from all the parts and auditions he had to go to, trying to get noticed. Talia, on the other hand, seemed more at ease in the place where George was still trying to find his way. They felt disconnected from each other because of this mismatch. They were both very busy with their jobs, which made it hard for them to make their marriage work. George had to work harder because he wanted to reach his goal, while Talia could relax more because she was already in a good situation. Yet George got angry when things were too easy for him. He felt like he was always chasing something that was just out of reach. In the end, these growing stresses caught up with them. The couple began to fight more often, and the love that had brought them together in the first place started to fade. What began as a passionate love story lost its shine as their separate life paths took over. They realized that the things that had made them like each other in the first place were now pushing them apart. In the end, their marriage fell apart because their hopes and dreams were not met. They chose to break up because they knew that love isn't always enough to deal with the challenges of life and work. Their story is a good lesson that relationships can be hard, even in the world of love and glamour, and the path can take you in strange directions. A lot of people see this time in Clooney's life as a turning point, because it made him grow and figure out what he really wanted in a partner. It set the stage for his future connections, which led him to Amal Alamuddin, the love of his life, many years later. When George Clooney met Amal, his life took a turn he didn't expect. They are George and Amal Alamuddin. It was a warm night in July 2013 that would change everything. George was relaxing in the peace and quiet of his lovely home near Lake Como in Italy. The phone rang. At first, George didn't think much of it when a friend asked to bring a guest. That night, his life would change in a way that he would never forget. When they got there, George could feel the excitement in the air. Some of his friends thought that something important was about to happen. In fact, George's agent felt the same way about this meeting. George got a strange call from his agent right before Amal walked in the door. George kept hearing the words about the woman who was coming to his house and who he was supposed to marry. He couldn't help but laugh at the idea. Was she just wishing she could, or was there more to it than that? The magic started that night as they sat together. Since George's parents were there, the meeting felt more like a family get-together. They shared stories and got to know each other while they laughed and talked. As dusk came, the sun went down, and time seemed to go away. They talked and laughed until late at night, lost in each other's company. It was easy, like they had been friends for a long time. In the middle of this beautiful night, George was pulled to Amal's smarts and charm. When it was time to leave, they gave each other their contact information. The promise that Amal would send George pictures of his parents was very important to him. For a few weeks, George and Amal talked to each other through letters. George wasn't sure where it was going at first. He thought they were just friends who talked about life in a nice way. He was interested in whether she felt the same spark as him. Would she like to go out with him? He had no idea what was going on, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were getting closer. Each email made George feel like he was getting closer, but he was getting closer, but he was still careful. He knew what could go wrong because he had been in love before. Still, it was clear that people were excited. George saw that this was more than just friendship as they talked about their hopes and dreams. Amal's wit and passion won his heart, and every message made him want to learn more about her. What began as a simple get-together turned into a whirlwind of feelings and prospects at the first meeting. There was a beautiful dance of love going on between George Clooney and someone he loved. He had a feeling that fate had brought them together just like his agent had said would happen. He didn't know that this would lead to a love story that would fascinate the world and make his life different for good. As their love grew, George couldn't ignore the signs. They came from different worlds, but when they were together, there was something magical about it. By chance, a meeting turned into a trip that will last a lifetime. George Clooney, who was once sure he was single, was about to find love in the strangest way possible. The Daily Mail is a British trash newspaper that George Clooney stood up to in July 2014. The whole world watched. A shocking story in the paper said that his fiancée, Amal Alamuddin's mother, did not want them to get married for religious reasons. The news hurt a lot. A lot of people believed it, which led to rumors and worries. George, on the other hand, never gave up. He was very angry. He made fun of the newspaper on social media because he wouldn't let their lies ruin his happiness. He said that the Daily Mail was the worst kind of tabloid because it made up stories without thinking about the truth or the people who were hurt by them. It was clear from how loud his words were that tabloids, which often depend on spreading false information, have a bad side. As things went on, the Daily Mail quickly saw what it had done wrong and said sorry. But George wasn't interested in how sorry they were. He thought their lies were hurtful. To him and Amal, but also to the people who read their work. George thought that the newspaper broke the public's trust by making up stories, and he wasn't going to let them off the hook easily. Even though things were going crazy around them, George and Amal kept their attention on what was important, their love. They took a big step toward their future together on August 7, 2014. In the United Kingdom, they went to the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea to get their marriage permits. In the middle of the storm, this was a happy moment that marked the start of a new part of their lives. For the big day on September 27, 2014, they said their vows at a beautiful place called the air was thick with excitement as friends and family came to see two amazing people get married. The ceremony was full of love and laughter, and Walter Veltroni, a close friend of George's and a past mayor of Rome, was the wonderful person who led the ceremony. Putting aside the noise and bad things in the world, George and Amal were filled with happiness as they stood in front of their loved ones. Air journey was about to begin, and they were sure that nothing could stop them. Their love story was getting better. They were ready to face the future as a team, even though there were problems. Not only did this moment end their single lives, but it also started a strong relationship between them. People used to say that George Clooney was definitely single, but now he has found love in Amal Alamuddin. The couple had made it through the drama and the press, and were now ready to start their new life together. The talk show The Talk on CBS broke the news on February 9, 2017, making everyone very happy. They were going to have twins. Amal Clooney was pregnant. Fans and family members were overjoyed when they heard the news. The couple had quickly become one of Hollywood's most loved pairs. People were excited and interested in the months running up to the birth. Many people were excited to see how George, who was known for his wit and charm, would handle being a dad, especially with Amal, who was also very famous for being a bright lawyer and human rights activist. It was finally here on June 6, 2017, after a long wait. Ella is Amal's beautiful daughter, and Alexander is her handsome son. When the couple welcomed their babies into the world, they were so happy it hurt. Pictures of the new family began to go around, showing George's bright smile and Amal's pure joy as they held their babies. The world cheered with them as they celebrated the birth of a child. It was a magical moment. The kids that George and Amal had grew up very quickly. In 2020, Jimmy Kimmel and Graham Norton, two talk show hosts, asked George to say something really shocking. Even though neither he nor Amal spoke Italian very well, their kids did. The kids picked up the language very quickly, showing that they were very smart and able to change. When this was revealed, everyone laughed and admired George as he joked that they had taught their kids something that neither parent could master. Because the twins were raised with love, culture, and a touch of foreign flair, they were able to speak two languages. The world was excited to see George and Amal as they learned how to raise their children and experience the ups and downs of the process. They had made a lovely family by combining their lives in a way that was both touching and inspiring. From the time they were born until they learned to talk, every important event in their lives became part of their story, which kept going with love. Before he met Amal Alamuddin, George Clooney was sure he didn't want to get married or have kids. He had a great life in Hollywood full of work, friends, and a lot of success. But he felt empty inside. He told himself that being a bachelor was a good life for him. He said that a lot, "I'm never getting married." He's not going to have kids. George was happy with his life the way it was and thought it was perfect. After that, things changed a lot when a common friend brought Amal into his life in 2013. George felt something stir inside him as soon as he met her. He changed the way he looked at life. Amal wasn't just pretty, she was smart, passionate, and full of life. He felt a spark between them that he had never felt before. She was smart and kind, and they were both interested in him. As they spent more time together, George felt happy in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. The walls he had built up around himself started to fall apart. He saw that even though he thought his life was full, it was really missing something important, someone to share it with. Before he met Amal, he understood how unhappy his life had been. During a conversation with GQ in 2020, this was said. What he learned was very important and changed everything for him. George, who used to be married and had sworn off love, found himself thinking about marriage and starting a family all of a sudden. He used to find the idea of getting married and having kids strange and scary, but now it felt right. Changes were very noticeable. He felt like Amal had opened a door to a room he didn't know existed. It was full of love, happiness, and a future he had never thought possible. As their friendship grew, George was happy to start a new part of his life. He was ready to get married and have a child, which was something he had once thought was impossible. Being able to break down walls and change hearts was proof of how strong love is. There are some loves so deep and real that they can change even the hardest hearts. George found that love in Amal. This change from being alone to having a friend wasn't just about love, it was a big wake-up call for George. That life can be fuller and more important when shared with someone who makes you feel good. As a shocking and dramatic turn of events, George and Amal Clooney's fairy tale romance is now facing real problems. They are splitting up. Fans were shocked when they found out that the couple, who were known for their high-class lifestyle and close relationship, is now living apart. Because they are both very busy at work, there is a gap between them that seems to be growing every day. There are rumors that George, the well-known actor and director, is going to move to New York City. He is getting ready for a big part on Broadway, which is his dream job and will take up all of his time for at least a year. Amal, who is a committed human rights lawyer, will stay at their beautiful villa in Lake Como, Italy. They will have to live apart for almost 4,000 miles, which makes their marriage more difficult. The couple's promise to stay together seemed unbreakable at one point. They agreed not to be apart for more than a week after they got married. They were known for having a strong bond and helping each other out. But now that reality has set in, keeping that promise is getting harder and harder. Their hard jobs have caused them a lot of stress. People say that both George and Amal are workaholics because they are led by their interests and goals. These people have made their own little success bubble, but it looks like it might pop. Since they have to travel a lot and keep their promises all the time, they don't have much time for each other. As they get through this tough part, rumors of trouble in heaven get louder. Sources say that their marriage is breaking down because they are living different lives. The couple that seemed to be together all the time is now going through a test of their love and loyalty. Can their relationship last despite being far apart and the pressures of their jobs? Fans all over the world keep a close eye on George and Amal and hold their breath, hoping that they can get back together. A lot of people have been moved by their love story, but now it feels weak, like a beautiful glass sculpture that could break with the smallest touch. Before, in 2021, Oscar-winning star George Clooney said something very strong. He said his family is the most important thing to him. His promise that he would stop acting when he turned 60 was emphasized. It was easy to understand. Family was more important than the fame and fortune of Hollywood. Things started to change, though, as time went on. George was back in the world of making movies, even though he was 63 years old this time. Early this year, he began shooting a new movie in Italy with the famous comedian Adam Sandler. It looked like a dream come true, sunshine, beautiful places, and fun. He had other things to do too, though. He had also directed The Boys in the Boat, a movie that needs a lot of imagination and hard work. Besides these jobs, George was shooting Wolves with his old friend Brad Pitt in New York City. There was a lot of electricity and excitement in the air. But as the cameras rolled and the lights shone, it was hard not to wonder. What about his promise to put his family first? According to the stories from In Touch, George was a man in charge who ran his movie business like a military general. He was involved in everything, from making movies to playing in other people's movies. He had a very busy routine that didn't leave much time for his family, whom he said he loved most. An important irony hung in the air like a thick fog. There was a man who talked about family. Still, he was deeply enmeshed in the chaos of Hollywood. Being a husband, a father, and a filmmaker all at the same time raised a lot of problems. Did he really care about his family, or was he once again swayed by the pull of fame? As George's work went on, the tension stayed high. Would he be able to balance his goals with his family life, or would the pressures of the movie business push him farther away from the people he loved? Everyone looked. I was excited to see how this smart man would handle the challenges of life, love, and work. Would he have to make the painful choice between his dreams and his family in the end, or could he really have it all? As more information about George Clooney came out, the answer stayed a mystery. On the other hand, his 46-year-old human rights lawyer wife Amal Clooney was making her own way to power and influence. Both she and her husband George had a lot going on in their lives. She had important work to do and issues with a lot at stake. She spent a lot of time in London working with people and fighting for justice. The International Criminal Court, which rules on the fates of countries, was like a fortress of law in The Hague, Netherlands, where she sometimes went even further. After 4 long months of hard work, Amal worked with other foreign lawyers in The Hague for 4 months. Every day was tense because they talked about issues that could make people's lives different. In that world, every choice was important because lives were at stake. Amal did well in this setting, using her sharp mind and strong desire for justice to make a change. Before she got married to George, Amal made it clear that she would always put her job first. She didn't want to be in the background because of how famous her husband was. Her strong and determined words showed how strong she was. It didn't matter how bright George's star was, Amal had her own hopes and dreams and was not afraid to go after them. But there was a big cost to this promise. The two people were once thought to be a great match, but now their time together was passing them by like sand through their fingers. Because both of them were so busy with their jobs, the only time they really spent together was on holidays. Very few breaks in their crazy lives. They looked forward to these trips because they were a rare break from their busy lives and a chance to spend time together. Even though they loved each other, the truth was harsh. They had their own teams and friends, but their lives didn't really cross. George was busy with Hollywood projects a lot of the time, while Amal was figuring out how to follow the complicated rules of foreign law. They could feel the distance, which made an imaginary wall between them. As they went their separate ways, a dramatic strain grew between them. Could their strong love stand up to the stress of their busy jobs? Would they be able to talk things out before the gap between them got even bigger? The future of them and their family was unknown with each passing day. It made people wonder what would happen when the holidays were over and the real world called again. Maybe love would keep them together, but their different lives might make them drift apart. The answers were covered in mystery, ready to be revealed as they went about their busy lives, trying to find a way to balance work, love, and everything else. If you liked this video, please click the next button and like if you liked the video.